Hello, Michael Chigani, and this is Straight Talk. With me today is Mr. Kin Hei. You're the new chairman of the Democratic Party. The old one, Wu Chi-wai, he resigned because all of the opposition members had quit the Legislative Council. You're also a district councillor, right? Now, I just want to ask you this. There is no more opposition in LegCo. Is there a role for the opposition in Hong Kong anymore?
Of course, there's a role for us in Hong Kong, I think. There are still a lot of things that we have to voice out. There are still a lot of problems in Hong Kong that need to be solved, and the government didn't seem to know what is those problems. And I think our role is actually to help the people to voice their voices, because, in this kind of political turmoil in Hong Kong, a lot of people lost their hope. And a lot of Hong Kong people, they think, well, there's no need, or they don't think there's any use to actually voice out. So I think it is important still for us to be here and to stay with the people and to help them voice out what they actually want.
But you don't have a platform. I mean,
well, I think
the district council is not really as much of a platform as the legislative council.
The legislative council, I think it is because back in October or December, it is a kind of a political gesture that we have to do that, because the government disqualified for legislative councillors from the pro-democracy side. Sure. So that is something that we need to do. That is something that we have to do.
But then you lost the platform.
But then we still have the platform there, because if there is an election coming forward, then we will be able to keep on talking to the people. And I think what we have here in Hong Kong, what the legislative councillors or ex-legislative councillors have, is not just the legislative council. We got our own supporters, we got our own influence in different areas, no matter it is on the community or it is on YouTube or other channels. The people just think they are those opinion leaders, that they can listen to them, they can talk to them, and they can affect them and influence them as well. So I think the Legislative Council is one of those platforms. And I think, first of all, we're not quitting that platform altogether. We didn't make that decision. We just make the decision that we will not continue in that in this term
By
of
not continuing
council.
in LegCo, you talk about you can use a YouTube channel and so on. But the fact of the matter is, when there was LegCo meetings with the opposition included, the media would go and cover it, and then more people can see it, right, in the newspapers, on TV and radio and so on. If you just use YouTube as a channel for your platform, fewer people will see it.
Of course, I think this is a fair comment. Legislative Council itself is a good platform for people to actually hear you. Now we don't have that platform right now, but still, I think the influence is not just from the television. We can talk to our community. We can talk to our voters in all other ways. In the past, we may rely on the legislative council more, but nowadays we rely on other methods, other means to talk to them. So I think that kind of platform is, of course, legislative council is a very useful one. It's a very effective one, but now, at this point of time, I think we can resort to other platforms as well.
Well, the district councils, the elections last year, the opposition won most of the seats, right? So now there are reports that the government or the central government is trying to target the district councils as well, maybe disqualifying people like you and the other opposition members, or, revamping the entire system, so that you will not have that much of an influence, because district councillors can also, 117 seats in the district councils can vote for the next chief executive, right? And you probably, your opposition camp will have a lot of those seats, right? Because you won big time last year, and there's now talk that they will disqualify that or do away with that, even do away with the 5 super seats in the Legislative Council. When they have done that, you will also have lost your voice in the district council. So how can the opposition still have a role in Hong Kong?
Well, I think they still didn't do that yet.
They haven't, no.
And of course, it's just a matter of time. We know they will do this.
You think they will?
I think they will do this, but we don't know how big the scale will be. They can choose to disqualify a few of them, or dozens of them, or hundreds of them. So I think it is a very different ways to deal with the situation ahead of us. But now I think, as I said, I think our connection with the residents, our connection with our community is much stronger than what the government think.
Why would you say that?
Even though I don't have the seat, take that for example.
You mean take away your district council seat?
If they take away my district council seat, my influence in the community will not change.
Why would you say that?
The people is not voting me or is not listening to me because I am the district councillor. It is because they listen to me, so they elected me. I think the government needs to know that. Because the people trusted on those pro-democracy district councillors, they trusted those politicians, and then they voted them to get the district councillor seat. It's not the other way around. Even though you disqualify many of those district councillors, their influence in the district is still there. And the influence of those people who you disqualify their representatives, the people will get more angry. If you disqualify all those district councillors, we got 1.7 million of votes. You're pissing off 1.7 million of Hong Kong people. So I think, although I don't understand why they would consider doing that, but this is a very wrong move for them.
What would the role be of the opposition if you're no longer in LegCo and you lose a lot of your people in district councils? Can you still keep up an opposition role without LegCo and the district councils as platforms? Or you say people still believe you, not that because you're a district council, but you have influence. Will that influence begin to wane, when you no longer have LegCo platform or district council platform?
Well, I sort of think, of course, there will be a little bit of influence on that because, if I am no longer the district councillor, the government officials, they may not listen to me as
yeah, I mean, you're just an ordinary person. So, whatever you want the government to do, they will just ignore you.
Well, but in the past, even though when there is no district councillor at all, there are a lot of social workers or community organizers. They're doing all kinds of things like that as well. But of course, I'm not saying that we're abandoning those platforms. I'm not saying that we're abandoning the district council and the legislative council. If there's a legislative council coming up this year, I believe that we will very much consider whether we should run for it or not. And that kind of platform is something that we treasure as well. So, of course, we don't know yet whether the government will still hold the election.
It's supposed to be held in September.
Yeah, supposed to be. It's supposed to be held last September. So we don't know yet whether the government will hold a legislative council election.
Will you run? I mean, will the opposition come back and put candidates up? Will you have like Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C? If the first candidate is disqualified, you have another one, you have another one. Is that what you're going to do?
Well, I'm not ruling out to run for legislative council election. Of course, we can't say for sure, yes, we are going to run for it. But to me...
The opposition is not decided yet whether they will take part.
We are not decided yet, but to me, I think it is not wise to give up any opportunities to get to the people. And the legislative council election itself is a way to get to the people and to get their vote and to let the people voice heard again. Because when they vote, they have a voice there. When they vote, they tell the government and they tell the world, yeah, we're still here. Hong Kong people, we're still backing those oppositions that the government didn't like.
Shouldn't the opposition camp start to plan ahead? It is now January. If there are legislative elections in September, surely you should get together now and decide whether you're going to run, not going to run, who the candidates are going to be, and so on. I mean, has that happened yet?
Well, didn't happen to the whole Democratic Party, the whole democracy camp yet, but for Democratic Party, we are always preparing to run. We are always preparing our next generation of legislative councillors. I think this is an ongoing process for our party, and if there is an election, and if we finally decide that we will run for the election, then we will field our candidates there. Of course, at this point of time, we're not yet decided whether we will go or not, but we will prepare to go first. And if we decided we are not going to go for the election, then we drop that.
Why would you decide not to go for elections?
Well, we don't know yet because, to me, just as I said just now, I think it is not wise to give up any platforms or any opportunities to let the people's voice being heard. So, of course, there are some other things that the pro-democracy side or our supporters have because they think that legislative council is no longer useful. You can't block the bills, you can't block the governments, and the government is not listening. So some of our supporters really get sick or they get tired of the legislative council process.
All right.
So we will have to listen to that as well.
Quick break, see you soon, you'll go away. Thanks for staying with us. This is Straight Talk. With me today is the chairman of the Democratic Party, Mr. Kin Hei. You're the new chairman of the Democratic Party. Now, you were talking about whether the Democratic Party will run or not in the Legislative Council elections. But there is a lot of division within the opposition camp.
Yeah.
The younger people in the opposition camp, the more radical ones, are saying that they don't want to follow the older ones. You're not the older ones. I mean, you're considered one of the younger ones. But the younger ones and the traditional Democrats, there is a serious split. How will you solve that problem?
I think that kind of differences between the traditional one and the new coming ones, I think it is unavoidable because if they are totally fine with us, they will not come out to get their voice heard. So I think it is unavoidable. And what I think is for the traditional one and the new ones, the most important thing is to understand each other. I don't think there's a great chance that we can actually come together in all sort of things.
But if you cannot unite, you already are in big trouble now. Most of you have resigned from LegCo. The government apparently is even targeting the district councils now by not attending meetings, or you were handing out face masks and they've stopped that. So there is the targeting of the district councils. If you don't unite now, how can you fight back?
Well, I don't think being united means that we have to get consensus in all sort of things. I think the best way for the two different sides or two different ideologies to be together, to stay peaceful together, is that, well, we respect each other and we understand what you're doing. Although we may not be agreeing with all the things you did, I still understand that and I still respect that. I think this is the best way for the whole pro-democracy camp to actually co-survive, to live together.
But then you'll be going into elections very divided, competing with each other.
Well, I think it will be very dividing when it comes to the point that we have to decide whether we're going to run or not. In last September or October, I think there is a great difference between the pro-democracy camp. We have a poll whether we should leave the Legislative Council altogether or not.
That was not decisive.
So the people are having different views. We have to respect that, and we have to know that that is the fact that 47% of people say we should stay, and 47% of people say we should leave.
Exactly.
And I believe that in the coming Legislative Council, if there is one, the situation will be similar. Some of them may say, well, you should not going for election, and some will say, well, you should still go for election. I think this is the fact that we have to deal with, and it's not possible to try to make everybody on the board. So I think the best way going forward is to respect each other and to understand each other, and then if they do something that is not up to what I think is the best way, I still respect that. But he did his thing, and I do my thing.
Do you really think, seriously think, Mr. Low, that you said there is a role for the opposition inside or outside of LegCo or the district councils, but do you really think there is a role that is meaningful? Because the way things are now going, with the national security law in place and the central government is more hands-on in running of Hong Kong, that the central government will allow a meaningful opposition. Because, as you know, reports have said they want to get rid of the district councils, and so you won't have an influence in electing the chief executive. So it seems like, to me, that the central government wants now to have peace and harmony and not want to have opposition voices.
Total control.
Well, maybe they want to have total control or to control the elections. Given that situation, is there really a meaningful role for the opposition?
I think the role for the opposition is now greater than any times in Hong Kong. It is utmost important for the opposition party to be existing in the Hong Kong in the future, because I think I'm expecting to see a long era of darkness in Hong Kong. It's a dark times in the history of Hong Kong, and what we have to do here as an opposition party is to keep on the momentum and to keep the faith of the people. So no matter we're in the council or not, that role is still important.
You say it's dark period. What is causing this darkness?
Well, you know, when there's a national security law in place, and it is threatening people,
but if you don't break the law, then nothing happens.
But it threatens you. It still threatens you. You know, when you just hold a placard with nothing, with a white paper, the police will still say you're violating the national security law. When you're doing crowdfunding, they will say you're doing money laundering. All sort of things.
Could you not do any of those things and be a loyal opposition, as some people have suggested?
Well,
I mean, there are certain things, there are certain red lines, whether you like it or not, you have to accept.
I think to my party, at least, we didn't touch on those red lines altogether from 1994 till now. We respect the one country, two system, and we hope the one country, two systems to work. And nowadays, we just think one country, two systems is not working as it should be.
So what are you opposing? Tell me what you're opposing.
Well, the Chinese government, the central government, they're still doing a lot of things in Hong Kong. You know, the Central Liaison Office and the Hong Kong Macau office, they have the say in Hong Kong local affairs, and they said it is mandatory and it is acceptable by the basic law, which is not what we have been understanding about. If you tell me that in the past 27 years, all the people in Hong Kong, including all the government officials, understand wrongly about the basic law, then the problem is on the central government. It's not on us.
But you know, this didn't happen before. All of these things suddenly came, the tightening of red lines, the national security law, the disqualification of 4 legislative councillors, and so on. All of this happened arising from last year's protests. In hindsight, was that right to protest in that way?
Well, I think it is a response from the people. I can't say it is right or wrong, but the problem is still there. The problem is that when the government fails to listen to 2 million of people walking to the street, which is 1/3 of Hong Kong total population, I think in any places, if there's a elected government and 1/3 or 1/4 of the whole populations went onto the street and say, you should stop doing something and just keep on going, that government will be gone. But here we are. We still have Carrie Lam. We still have Teresa Zhang. Everybody is still there. So this government is not taking its responsibility, and we're still. I think this is the most important problem. Why all those Hong Kong people, maybe you say that is some kind of more radical or violent protest.
So you talk about responsibility. Was it responsible or irresponsible for some of the opposition members like Ted Hui and Nathan Law to flee Hong Kong when they were facing charges?
I think I can only understand the situation because that threat to themselves and to their families. I think.
Shouldn't they face justice, face their day in court?
To me, I'll stay in Hong Kong no matter what.
You will.
I will stay in Hong Kong no matter what. But I also believe that if the judicial system is fair,
you don't think it's fair?
Then people will not be scared.
But
nowadays, I think the judicial system, I am in double doubt.
Well, you talk about the judicial system. You yourself have been arrested.
Yeah.
From last year's protest at the Polytechnic University, you have been arrested and you are facing a charge. You haven't gone to court yet, right?
Yeah. I have been to the court for a few times.
But the trial is not started yet, right?
No, not yet.
Exactly. So, you say you don't know about the judicial system. Do you believe in it?
Well, I really don't know because nowadays, I think a lot of Hong Kong people started joking. Whether or not you will be convicted is not because of the evidence here. It's just because who the judge is presiding your case.
You don't believe in the judges anymore?
Some of them. I think we have a lot of questions about the judicial system. We have a lot of questions why somebody is jailed before being convicted. We have a lot of problems.
They're not jailed. They refuse bail.
Yeah, but they're still jailed. So I think there are a lot of questions here. And for example, Joshua Wong or Agnes Chow, are those really serious crime that needs months of detention or months of jail? And at the same time, some trial gangs they can get bail at the same time. You can't say.
I've got 20 seconds left. Is your political career, will it be over if, for example, you're convicted and you go to jail?
No, it won't. I'll still be in political. My seats may be gone.
But the district councils?
Yeah, but I'll still be the chairman of the Democratic Party.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. See you next time. Good evening.